They are peak Craftsman tools when Craftsman was a peak brand. It's just that they feel heavy. They're beautiful. They glisten. They've got a gunmetal finish.
Yeah.
They lock into place perfectly. And I will talk myself out of using that tool and try and use a butter knife instead to unscrew something. Welcome to the Sober Friends Podcast. I'm Matt J. Steve's over there. And if you've ever wondered whether life really can get better without alcohol, well, you're in the right place. Whether you're new to recovery, have some time sober, or you're supporting someone you love, we're glad you're here. And this is a podcast about sobriety, emotional growth, and learning how to navigate life without having to drink over it. Steve, how's life without having to drink over it?
Life's great, Matt, without having to drink over it. Life is life, so it still throws challenges my way and your way and everybody else's way. But the fact that we don't have to drink over it just makes it so much easier to navigate. And yeah, it's a beautiful life, living a sober life after the kind of drinking that I did and the things I, sort of gave up while I was drinking. I just can't. I can't imagine ever wanting to go back to that. But I know that being that I'm an alcoholic, I'm always susceptible to that. So
I went over to a 5-year-old's birthday party where there was plenty of booze, and it is such a wonderful feeling that I don't need that, and it feels more like it would be more of a bother for me to drink. Having said that, getting through life with the stuff that comes along the way, especially when it's like the pain is unbearable, how do I get through this, is really difficult. As a little bit of an aside, this is the, this too shall pass type thing. I have really been freaking out over my son going to college and the tuition and all of that stuff. And I stumbled upon a 529 plan that I started for him when he was born. And I didn't put much into it. I started putting like $50 here and there, and then I just stopped. Like, we don't have the money. And that's the rub. When you first have your kid, it's like you're making the least, but you have the most time to put money into it to grow, but you don't have the money to put into it because everything's so expensive. So I don't remember how much I put in there. It wasn't much. And I'm like, I've got to find that account. There was $13,000 in there.
Wow.
I had never touched it. And I'm like, I almost fell out of my chair. That is not going to cover his schooling forever. But it's a nice down payment. Yeah. And it helps buy me some time. And so it's sort of like the whole this too shall pass type of thing. It does not solve my problem, but it is something. And it was a sizable something to help get through of, okay, we're getting through our problem. And it goes to this topic that I have today, that part of me asking for help is doing this podcast, of talking it out here, of talking to other people. And I think about people I run into who ask me for help, and then they apologize for asking me for help. And it is recognizable to me of feeling like I'm being needy. I'm complaining again. I'm so sorry you have to deal with me. But I think what somebody really is hoping for when I ask that is, I want to hear back, you aren't needy, you aren't a burden. I still love and respect for you. So I'm curious about this, Steve. When somebody repeatedly apologizes for struggling, what do you think they're really asking for?
Well, there's a couple things. First of all, it's a very timely topic for me, and I'll tell you why. It's like we were just talking about. I'm traveling to Vegas for business tomorrow morning. I'll be gone. I'll come back Thursday, and it's the first time I'm leaving my wife. My wife had some physical struggles. First time I'm going to leave her for that kind of stretch of time. And we have a dog that's been struggling with a little GI issue. So a lot of anxiety around that. And I've set stuff up for my wife to help out. And I've made some suggestions to her. And there's a lot of suggestions. The suggestions are all around her asking for help, right? That's what they're all around. They're all around her asking for help and reaching out for help. and she cringes at some of them, right? And I don't want to gross anybody out, but I'm like, the dog's been having some accidents in the house, and I'm like, my wife is physically incapable of getting down on her hands and knees and cleaning those things up. So I'm like, okay, what's the plan? Like, what's the plan if that happens while I'm gone, which is a real possibility. And actually, I don't even think it's a real possibility. We talk about when it happens, not if it's going to happen, right? Because that's the way the pattern has been. And it occurred to me that the thing that stands in the way of her asking for help, and same thing with me and a lot of other people, is pride.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's our own pride. And we don't want to be embarrassed. And I think that's what people who apologize, like they feel like they're they want to be able to handle things themselves, right? And they think, oh, I should be capable of handling this myself. And what that is that's our pride not allowing us to really ask for help. And let other people help us. Now, lucky for us and for me in particular, and certainly not my wife, and you too, but we have a program. We have a program that specifically tells us in order to be successful in our program, we need to ask for help.
Right.
So regardless of how we feel about it, and a lot of us still struggle with that. I do too. I've said it before. The biggest problem I have with asking for help, like if I'm doing a project or something, is the word now. It's like, hey, can you help me do this project? Yeah, when would you like me to help? Oh, I want to do it now. Right? Like, I'm not planning, right? Not next week. I want to do it now. I'm in the mood to do it now, and that keeps me from going. There's a little stubbornness there and stuff like that, but it's pride. And I mean it. I think that's, it really, that became clear to me when I was dealing with my wife and talking to my wife about it. Like I just said to her, I'm like, something, we may need to have somebody designated that's going to come to the house and pick up a mess of the floor if that happens, right? And I have people who are willing to do that, right? Like there are people who have said, oh, I'll go do that.
I would do that. I have 2 dogs, so
right. That's what I mean.
I clean up dog. My dog was last weekend vomiting something.
This is the point, right? Is that other people have dogs and pets, and they know this happening, but it's different for my wife because she doesn't live in that environment. She doesn't live in a 12-step program where we rely on each other. So, and I try to do it by example too, is I have a friend, Frank, right? Frank, who sometimes shows up at the Monday night meeting. Not that Frank, but big Frank. And he had a job interview and he called me up and he's got a 4-year-old daughter. And he's like, hey, can you watch my daughter for a couple hours on Thursday? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do that. And I'm used to it. Like I have 4-year-old grandchildren, so my house is set up for a 4-year-old to come visit and stay busy. And I told my wife that. I'm like, listen, when Frank needed help, he reached out and asked for help. Right? So it's really is a thing. I think that it boils down for most of us to pride, and for a lot of us, that's a hard thing to overcome, and it gets us in trouble. Listen, I'm not immune to it. The reason why I'm better at that is because I've been doing this program for quite a few 24 hours.
Nobody's perfect at this. This is why it's the topic. I certainly am not, and I have been in a place of just apologizing for asking people for help, especially my wife, of thinking I'm weak, I'm soft. Your wife, not in the program, doesn't have a problem, but is the perfect example because pride can be helpful. Pride can push us through. And I look at her life of her strength to gut through things and to be independent served her well through life. And then it becomes the double-edged sword that you can only get through so much of that sometimes it becomes a problem. Being a single mom or through her job or, having to be independent through a period of life, that pride helps you. You can get through. Then if you get sick, you can't just muscle through. Then it becomes something that is counterproductive productive. So it feels like, well, this worked for me for so long, and now it doesn't. It must be that I have done something wrong. And I can understand that feeling. I also think about, I've got a buddy, Mr. B. Mr. B was actually a guest on this. I think it's episode 2 or 3. You can go back. And Mr. B apologizes every freaking time he asks for something. And it's not even something. It, like, he'll talk to me and then he apologizes.
Right.
And it's like, I want to shake him. Like, I don't mind hearing this. As a matter of fact, this is good for me to hear. It takes me out of myself. I enjoy talking to you. You can tell me when you've got a problem or something is troubling to you. You're doing me a favor. But then I think about this. You ever feel like because you were sober that you no longer should need as much support from other people?
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it. Listen, I one of the things I struggle with, and I've talked about this. I had an anniversary this past week, or last week, I guess. Sunday starts a new week, and I don't think about my anniversary. And it was Monday, and I told the story, and it's true. Like, I never thought about it. I had to pick up a friend who was going to help me do some work around the house, and until our buddy John, who used to co-host this with us, called me that morning. I had not even thought that it was. I didn't remember it was my anniversary, and part of that is, like, I think part of that is because I'm a firm believer that I shouldn't have a cake because I'm doing something that most people do without an issue, right? And I fight that a little bit. Like, I'm just acting like a normal human being these days, and that's probably not a great way to look at it, because not everybody is afflicted with alcoholism and addiction like we are. So I probably need to give myself a little bit more grace, but I just don't feel like I deserve a big pat on the back because because I've done this stuff. So that's part of it, right? Is I don't think I should need as much help. And part of it is like, oh, I'm finally living like a normal human being, right? The other thing, right? So that's right. A little bit of self-deprecating stuff like, oh, you were a piece of shit before and now you're acting normal. So there's always work to be done there. Always work to be done there. And I gotta pay attention to that kind of stuff, right? I gotta pay attention to all of that, and the only way I pay attention to it is by going to meetings and listening to you guys, and then talking to people in these rooms.
I think this is where we also get into self-flagellation. Yeah. It's not just asking for help; it's I've got to beat the crap out of myself. And I hear that in a very subtle way, which is, well, I shouldn't have to celebrate my anniversary because I shouldn't have been an asshole all along.
Right.
And to me, that's part of, I don't deserve to celebrate because I'm just doing a good thing. If you think about human psychology, you need something to look forward to, and you need a reward for the change that you want to make. And if that is just a good feeling, a dopamine hit for, I'm at 16, 17, 18 years, then that's not a bad thing. That's not a human failing to do. It is, I'm setting up a reward so I have a touch point and a milestone to get to where I need to go. There's nothing wrong for feeling that. The anniversary thing is really important because I love anniversaries. It's not for me.
Right.
It is for other people. And I'm trying to remember you're at 16.
I am.
16. 16. All right.
Yep.
Because I'm trying to think, I think you were 4 when I got sober. Yeah. So now you're making me do math, that's a terrible thing. That's a horrible thing for me to do. See, I need help asking for people to do math because it's not how my mind works. But hearing somebody getting 16 years is helpful for the new person, or that person sober, or even hearing, it's helpful to hear you, act like an absolute lunatic from time to time. Mm-hmm. When you telling stories about F-bombing, when the F-bombs start coming into the conversation, that's when I know you're specifically bothered about something. And you hear that, and then you get to 16 years, and it's like, he got through that without drinking. That was a rough patch of time, and yet he didn't drink over it. That's an amazing thing I can get through today. So the chips for me are motivation for somebody else. It's to the point where I don't get the chip for me anymore. I get the chip to show the example to somebody else that this is doable, especially if I have asked for help consistently, because they have then seen the pattern of my struggle. And therefore, if I could get through that, you can get through what the other person is. So I'm going to go through a little bit of what the reassurance cycle looks like. This is, I struggle. I need support. I feel ashamed for needing it. I apologize or criticize myself. Then the other person reassures me. I feel temporary relief, but then the fear returns, so the cycle repeats. And that this reassurance cycle is real, but usually doesn't last because it doesn't address the underlying belief of my value depends upon whether this person is pleased with me right now. I think that's what the underlying thing is.
Yeah, that need for to be liked, that need to have people be pleased with us. All those things, those human traits that many of us have. Not everybody, but many of us have. And I think you'll find that those traits are prevalent in lots of alcoholics and addicts, right? Like those are the things. Like we have those traits to a level that's higher than many. Not all, but many. And those are the type of things that because that's what's happening to us all the time. We're feeling this. People don't like us. People don't love me. Whatever it might be, they can sound silly at times. But I want to go back to something that you were talking about before, and this is it. One of the things that I am really, really proud of is the fact that I've had some very difficult times during my 16 years of sobriety, and by that difficult times, I mean mostly they're internal, right? They're not like they felt external at the time, like this was happening, but the struggles are internal, and I was able to get through those things without drinking. And on that part of it, I am really proud, because I've had some times where, I was mentally not in a good place. And I just felt like giving up on the world. I talk about it all the time. I shared this, right? And I said, Friday night, I shared at my meeting, I'm like, the second hardest thing I'll ever do in my life is to stay married. No, I mean that.
Yeah.
Is because I have this thing where when life gets tough, and it's not that I don't I love my wife, and nothing like that. But I have this thing that my brain triggers where I talk about it all the time, an escape fantasy to go away, live by myself somewhere. But the hardest thing I'll ever do is to wake up every day with my alcoholic thinking, because that triggers the second part, which is me trying to escape from life, right? And that's what I do. That's why I do this podcast with you. That's why I go to meetings, is because I need to treat my obsession to drink is gone. I don't think about it. I don't think that it's a solution. Somebody said at a meeting, if I at my Wednesday noon meeting, this old guy, one of the oldest guys in the room these days, 80-something years old, said, I loved the party. And he said, and if I still could do it, I would do it. And that's the way I feel. Like, I would drink if I could drink, but I know that I can't drink. So what I always have to do is get up each day and work on all of these things: my pride, my self-centeredness, my fears, all of these things, right? And I'm, talking about, I'm going to Vegas. I'm leaving my wife for almost 4 days, 3 days plus, and there's a lot of anxiety about that. There's a lot of anxiety, and there's a lot of fear. But there are some things I can't control. I've worked really hard to put everything in place that I can control. And I'm walking out the door probably like 10:04. I got a 5:50 flight So, I'm at the airport by 4:30. I'm walking out my door by like 10:04 tomorrow morning. And away I go. And once I get there, like I'll be so immersed into my days. And once business starts, I got 2 days of conferences and stuff like that, meetings with my team. Like I won't have time to think about it. I won't. And my wife and I have this whole thing. Like we don't communicate bad stuff to each other unless, obviously unless it's really bad. Like if the dog's crapping all over the house, she's not going to tell me that, right? While I'm in Vegas, because she knows there's nothing I could do. Why worry me, right? She knows, and we know that. Like, we'll wait till you get home. We'll give you that news. So once I walk out of here, and again, I've said everything. I've reached out to her kids, my daughter who lives somewhat locally. Like everybody knows. I'm like, hey, if you got some time, just check in. Even you don't have to come by. Just give her a call, check in, see how she's doing. And then, like I said, I have everything set up. My buddy Chuck, who lives right down the street, who's in the program, we take care of each other's dogs all the time. And this is the whole point. He was gone for 10 days in New Orleans. They have an old dog. I cleaned up shit for his dog 2 or 3 times while they were gone, right? It's just part of the job. It's just part of the job. And he's like, oh, I wish, I'm sorry you had to do it. I'm like, hey, Chuck, it's part of the deal, right? You got a dog. She's in the house all day, right? She's used to having people home with her all day. Now you're expecting her to stay, and then, 4 or 5 hours at a stretch. And, sometimes, things just don't work out like you think they should. So those are the type of things I work on, all right? And the asking for help is always a big one.
You are reminding me that I want to go down to Home Depot and rent a steam cleaner because I have some old spots from the dogs, and that will rectify the old problem. My way of saying, like, the worst that's going to happen is you may need to go down to Home Depot and rent one of those steam cleaners to get a tough stain out of a carpet.
Right.
Like that, all your wife needs is somebody who can come down with a bottle of Resolve and some paper towels in the moment to get rid of it.
Absolutely.
And I think setting the expectation for other people to help your wife, because I think if people are regularly coming to the door knocking, she's going to get very irritated by that. Yeah. I don't think that's her thing. But if you set it up of this is how you can help a text or make a phone call,
right,
then that's going to be absorbable for her.
Yeah. Yeah, not only that, but just so she doesn't sit with her own anxiety, right? And the phone calls break things up. Hey, what's going on? It's like everything else. It's the same thing we do, right? Move a muscle, change a thought, help somebody else out. So that's what the text went out to her. She has 2 kids, and then my daughter-in-laws, and then my daughter is aware, and they're very close. So my daughter will check in. And my point was, like, her kids one lives in Chicago, one lives in Jersey, and I said nothing you guys can do, but just check in. Hey, how you doing, Mom? This is the time you want to stay in touch with your mother for the next couple of days. That's all. And yeah, nobody's coming knocking at the door, but there are some people in AA that my wife is very comfortable with. Right? We talk about my buddy Edson all the time. She loves Edson. There's a few other guys, Todd, and I told them on Friday, like, listen, guys, if you see a call come from me in the next few days, please answer it, because I may be asking you to go to my house and do something. And to a man, they're like, of course, yeah, we'll swing by there and take care of it. So again, easy for me because I work a program, and I try to live a program. But not as easy for someone who's not used to that, and a normal person. And again, a woman who has very much her whole life had a lot of pride and tried to be proper and things of that nature. So I get it, but it's life, and I don't control all of life as much as I want to.
Boy, isn't that the root of our problems? That we can't control everything and we want to be able to. That's the thing that sucks. So this is a good time out to talk about where apologies actually are appropriate. Don't misunderstand that when harm was done, you shouldn't apologize. It's useful when you speak cruelly, when you broke a commitment, when you ignored somebody's boundaries, when your behavior created a problem you need to repair. We're talking more about, I'm having anxiety, I'm feeling sad, I need somebody to listen, that type of stuff. And I was this way with my wife of like apologizing for the way I felt. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. I was having that next wave of my son going to school. And this was one where I was crying on and off for a couple of hours. And my apology to my wife is, why does life have to just be so hard? It felt as though, as hard as life felt right there in that moment, that was the least hard it ever was going to be. I was looking into the future, the wreckage of the future of like, this is really, really hard. I can barely handle this. And this is the easiest it will ever be. I can't do this. Why is life so hard for me? And we talked it through, and that whole, again, it's this almost feeling of grief about him going, releasing that. And there was a lot going on there. I was also grieving my mom. I never cried over my mom passing in 2018. And I was, as troubling as the relationship was, I wanted to call her because she put me through college. Like, what was it like for you? This is what I'm feeling. And I felt like this is something I could talk to her about. And she's not here for me to talk to. So I was releasing all this grief. And once I got through that, I could think clearly again. It wasn't that all my problems went away. It's I had now the bandwidth to be able to address those problems one at a time. And I realized part of feeling overwhelmed and awful was I did not have the capacity. It became overwhelming. I didn't have the capacity to deal with this type of stuff. So you asking for help, even when it's repeatedly, is going to give you additional capacity. Maybe you feel like I should be able to do this all by myself. Regardless of whether you should or not, you can't. However, whatever's going on, you do not have the capacity right now. It's like your wife. In the past, she did have the capacity, but she has had some medical issues and she can't bend down and she can't move around as fast as she used to. The capacity is just not there, and you can't wish that into existence. You got to ask for help, and then you can address those things quickly. My wife did that with me yesterday. She hurt her back. She needed somebody to help care for the horses at the barn, to fill the water pails, to help with mucking the stalls, all that stuff that requires some muscle, which I can do, so that she didn't continue to hurt herself.
Right. Yeah, a couple things you touched on there is one is to understand when we do owe somebody an apology and we have to say we're sorry. And again, I come back to it because we have a program that allows us to do some work on some discernment as to, is this, do I own, do I own this or what, right? So we have a program, we have some tools to be able to do that. And the easy part of that, no, not the easy part, the simple part of that is picking up the phone, calling your sponsor or another alcoholic and saying, hey, I'm struggling with this situation, and talk it through and try to figure out, do I owe this? Don't I owe this? Whatever. Again, a beautiful program that's available for us that makes our life better if we use it. If we use it. It's up to us to use those tools that we have. And so that's another thing, is trying to figure out what I own and what I don't own. And again, it's not always easy. And most of the time, a lot of times, I can do that on my own now these days. Like it might take a little bit of time in order to get back if it's an emotional thing, but I could figure out what I might own and what I maybe don't own. And then in those other times, it's, if I pick up the phone and call another alcoholic, it's easier to talk to somebody who has no emotional connection to the situation.
Absolutely.
And they're able to tell us. And I've done that. I do that with people all the time, right? I do it with people all the time. And who call me up. And I've had people call me up, hey, I want to talk to you about this, right? And we'll talk about it. And I they're looking for advice or an opinion, or I would tell them, and here's what I would do in that situation. Not telling you that that's what you should do, but here's what I would do. And then they get to go choose whatever they want. And it's I'll give you a perfect example. That I had a guy call me like last month sometime. He said, "Hey, I want to talk to you." We met early before a meeting, and he had a sponsee who's been in and out, and he was invited over to this guy's house for dinner. His partner, the guy's partner, who was his sponsee, did not know he had relapsed and he was drinking. Oh. But he hadn't told his partner. And now this guy was invited over for dinner, knowing that he's drinking. His partner doesn't know, and he was like, "What do I do? What do I do?" And I'm like, so we talked about it. And I'm like, something? Personally, I don't go. Because if I go, I'm contributing. For me, again, personally, I don't go because I'm contributing to the lie. And I would call this guy up and say, "Listen, I can't come because I feel like I'm contributing to the lie. So unless you're willing to come clean, then I'm going to have to cancel coming over for dinner." He and his wife were supposed to go over. But that was a perfect thing to try to walk through and get some help and talk to another alcoholic about, "Hey, I'm not exactly sure what I should be doing here." Sorry, I got a tickle in my throat. And I don't even know how that made out. Matter of fact, I saw him. I've been meaning to ask him and follow up on it and say, "Hey, how'd it go?" Whatever. And now that I think about it, the guy has been back to the meeting that I'm talking about. He comes to the meeting. So I'm assuming that it went okay. But again, we have this program. We have steps. We have tools. And if we're willing to use those tools, it gives us this life of sobriety that, man, I don't know. I can't. Words can't put it. You got to see it in action. You do. You have to see it in action to understand how good and how beautiful that it really is.
They are peak Craftsman tools when Craftsman was a peak brand. It's just that they feel heavy. They're beautiful. They glisten. They've got a gunmetal finish.
Yeah.
They lock into place perfectly. And I will talk myself out of using that tool and try and use a butter knife instead to unscrew something.
Right.
There's got to be a harder way than the easy way. And if you feel that way, you're not alone. You may still worry that people lose respect for you when you struggle. Recovery doesn't guarantee that the fear goes away. It gives you the ability to recognize the fear. Stop disguising it as an apology and communicate more effectively. I want to challenge you before you say, "I'm sorry," pause and ask, did I do something wrong? Am I afraid of what this person thinks of me? So your takeaway, don't apologize when you really need to do is just ask. So think about this. I love writing stuff down. I'm feeling blank. Would you be willing to blank? Is it okay to tell me what you have capacity for? That is a good approach. And it also makes me think about when somebody's asking for help, do they want a practical piece of advice or do they want empathy? I dealt with my daughter yesterday grousing about something on her soccer team, and she didn't want a solution. Even though she couldn't articulate it, she wanted me to validate a feeling. Mm-hmm. I'm feeling this way. She's like, "I do what I'm supposed to do. I'm running down the line. Nobody else does, but the coach yells at me." And I think what she needed was, "I can understand you're doing all the things you're supposed to do. You feel like you're the only one doing what you're supposed to do. Yet it's the coach taking it out on you, not everybody else." That would frustrate me. And that got her to open up even more. I'm like, that's the thing she needed. Would love to hear what you think about this. Matt at soberfriendspod.com. And if you like what we do, give us a review, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, share with a friend. Help us grow this thing to help the next sick and suffering person. Steve, have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks, Matt. You too.
We'll see everybody next week. Bye, everybody.